Welcome to Top Stories Hub. Today we've got a new story. Get ready, something incredible is coming. Today, I was sitting in what used to be my little haven of imagination and fresh ideas, but man, the air in my office felt thick, almost choking, with this nasty whiff of backstabbing hanging around. I'd thrown every bit of my grit, all those late nights with no sleep, and every nerve-wracking second into creating TechShield, a company I was dead sure would shake up the cybersecurity game by grinding out code, line by line, until the sun peeked over the horizon. Then there she was, Emma, the gal I used to adore and count on, standing right in front of me. Her gaze was icy and set as she flat out said, "You're done, Mike," shoving the termination papers across my desk like it was no big deal. Right then, all the dreams we'd cooked up together and the endless hours I'd poured into this clashed hard with the gut punch of her double-cross. Off to her side stood Ethan, this slick opportunist decked out in a pricey suit, smirking like he owned the world, plopped in my chair like it had always been his. A whirlwind of feelings hit me, fury, shock, and this quiet, simmering grit that'd soon push me forward. I grabbed the pen, the same one that had sealed so many big, hopeful deals before, with this steady, cool-headed vibe. Each slow scratch of ink on that paper wasn't just me signing off on my time at TechShield, it was me kickstarting a scheme I'd been quietly piecing together in the shadows. I caught this quick flash of doubt in Emma's eyes, a tiny break in that smug winner's mask she had on, and bam, it hit me, her big win was shallow, short-lived, nothing real to it. When I walked out of that office, a place that didn't feel like mine anymore, I fired off a determined text to my go-to-coder, Liam, asking, "We good?" His quick, "Yup, plan B's a go," buzzed back, striking a chord deep inside, lighting up this fierce drive to take back what belonged to me. Every step I took down that hushed hallway echoed with bits of my past, those late nights bent over my laptop, the rush of cracking tough problems, and the tight bond with a crew all chasing the same big picture, mixing with the sharp sting of being sold out. Losing TechShield, the thing I'd built from the ground up, didn't just hit my career goals, it shook who I am at my core. I thought back to every click of the keyboard, each win and stumble, and it dawned on me, Emma and Ethan figured they'd wiped me out, but all they did was push me to tap into this deep well of toughness I didn't even know I had. That betrayal sliced me up, sure, but it lit a fire under me. All those long shifts and weekends I gave up, they turned into this loud wake-up call to fight back. Stepping into the busy hallway, the day's weight was pressing down on me, but underneath it, I had this stubborn little flicker of optimism, a gut feeling that real strength isn't about fancy titles or boardroom games, but the heart and hustle you put into your craft. Signing those cold, official papers wasn't the finish line, it was the spark that kicked off a quiet battle to grab back TechShield's soul. I remembered all those nights when self-doubt tried sneaking in, and how every chunk of code I hammered out was my way of saying no to settling and getting stabbed in the back. With every deliberate step, my brain was buzzing, cooking up moves and tactics to flip this ugly loss into a killer comeback. I could practically hear the servers humming and the keyboards clicking away, the lifeblood of TechShield, reminding me the real juice of this place wasn't in some cushy executive seat, but in the sharp minds and non-stop grind of the folks who made it from scratch. Strolling down that shadowy corridor, my head kept replaying the day's mess in vivid detail, the shuffle of those papers, the frosty edge in Emma's voice, and Ethan's cocky grin that now just screamed the betrayal that smashed my trust to bits. I thought back to when TechShield was just a wild idea, sparked in a tiny room buzzing with hope and big dreams. Those times turned into this solid proof of how tough and tight-knit our little squad was, all in on that vision. That backstabbing didn't just hit my spirit, it went after everything we'd stood for building this company. Heading out onto the calm streets under the chilly night sky, every step felt loaded with grief, but there was this fiery resolve lifting me up. That crisp breeze out there. It was like it was murmuring hints of a fresh start, pushing me to turn this herd into the bedrock of a future where honesty, new ideas, and sticking together rule the day. Caught between feeling down and daring to hope, I made up my mind, every tear I'd choked back, every night I'd pushed through, would be the bricks for something better down the road. This wasn't just closing a rough chapter, it was the start of a full-on uprising where I'd take back my life, my work, and my pride with every ounce of grit in my bones and every thump of my heart. Deep down, I'd known for a while the fight for TechShield wasn't done. Even the day before, as I walked out after that gut-wrenching double cross, while Emma and Ethan were toasting their fake win, I was already plotting my next play. All that hallway chatter and sneaky boardroom huddles. Just noise covering up the real showdown simmering underneath. For months, I'd been clocking how Emma was cozying up to Ethan, picking up on those little, innocent-looking moments that later showed they were teaming up against me. I couldn't forget those sneaky looks and quick grins they'd swap during late-night coding jams. What started as light chit-chat morphed into this slick plan to yank everything I'd built right out from under me. Every time I spotted them pairing up, this icy, laser-focused determination settled in my chest. I'd burned the midnight oil not just cranking out code, but locking down the beating heart of TechShield, the real essence of what we were. I knew the suits and the money folks didn't hold the reins, it was the tech wizards, the code-crunching geniuses who got every twisty line that kept us solid. In low-key meetups and hushed talks, I'd pulled these loyal crew members together, firing them up with the idea that TechShield wasn't just some gig, it was proof of our sweat, dreams, and non-stop hustle. Every quiet chat and late-night plotting session laid the tracks for what I dubbed Plan B, a strike aimed square at the heart of the new crew who'd muscled in. Driving home through San Francisco's familiar streets, the city lights streaked by like blurry snapshots of old times and missed shots. The cool night air didn't do much to calm the chaos spinning in my head. I kept reliving the day's sting over and over, each second underlining how deep that betrayal had sliced. The tires humming on wet roads and the far-off drone of cars were this gloomy nudge that while the city was snoozing, I was knee-deep in a quiet war. My phone kept pinging with quick updates and secret messages from the crew in the loop. Every text hammered home the real deal. Emma might have thought she'd swiped my company, but she'd only grabbed a hollow shell. The true juice, the guts and soul of TechShield, was still with us, the ones who'd scratched it out from zero. I thought back to one late-night talk with Liam, his calm voice cutting through, saying, "We're gonna win this, not by getting even, but by sticking to what we're damn good at." Those words stuck with me as I weaved through twisty roads, each curve feeling like a fresh angle, another move deeper into our undercover fight. The plan was straightforward, but pulling it off needed razor-sharp timing. Every safeguard, every line of code I'd laid down, was a piece of this unbeatable wall we were about to raise. I pictured a day when every tap on the keys would scream that real power comes from know-how, heart, and sticking together. Cruising alone under that starry sky, I felt the weight of it all, but also this rush of possibility, proof that getting stabbed in the back wasn't gonna finish me. Every late-night bug hunt, every high-five over a tech win, was a battle cry. TechShield wasn't going down to some cheap trick. That whole drive was loaded with heavy thinking and scheming. Every line of code I'd ever written felt like a badge of our fight and our wins. I remembered nights crammed around screens with the team, hashing out security tricks, arguing over encryption, and building a connection no dirty move could snap. Their quiet backup was pumping through me now, matching every heartbeat as I mapped out how to take down the imposters running the show. I weighed every gamble, every slick countermove Emma and Ethan might throw, and sketched out a game plan to snag back not just the company, but our dignity too. This betrayal. It wasn't just about me, it was a slap at everything we'd poured into TechShield. Rolling onto a packed highway under that wide, endless night sky, I swore to myself, no matter how brutal the backstabbing or how thick the lies piled up, I'd steer this secret war to bring back what was mine. Every mile I drove, my willpower cranked up, powered by all those sacrifices and the rock-solid link with my crew. This quiet war was my turf now, where TechShield's real spirit would bounce back, tougher and more badass than ever. Back in the still calm of my home office, the low buzz of my computer felt like it was singing this hidden tune of codes and plans that had been my ride or die for years. Tonight, staring at that blinking cursor on an empty screen, I could feel the heaviness of what was coming next. I knew in just a few hours, everyone would see this genius move I'd cooked up, a sneaky chunk of code I'd buried deep in the system I'd helped build from the ground up. For 2 solid years, I'd slaved over what I called my ace in the hole, this Trojan horse tucked away under boring updates and routine fix-ups. It wasn't about settling scores for getting screwed over, it was a dead serious play to snatch back control of what was rightfully mine. Every key I'd hit, every line I'd crafted, carried the weight of late nights and this burning need that pushed me to kickstart TechShield from nada. In that quick little break, I swear I could almost catch the pulse of TechShield, this steady beat that brought back all those endless hours we'd sunk into making it real. I knew once that code kicked in full gear, there'd be no hitting reverse. This was it, the big reveal when my Trojan horse would show what it was really made of. I kicked back in my chair, this weird mix of rock-solid grit and a kinda sad, wistful vibe washing over me as I eyed the timer ticking down those last few seconds. Every click felt like this deep, heavy drumroll, signaling payback and the comeback of everything we'd lost. In this hush-hush digital battle, that Trojan horse wasn't just some lines of code, it stood for standing up, a loud and clear shout that real guts come from the know-how and smarts to build, shake things up, and push back when it counts. As those final seconds slipped away, this quiet sureness sank into me. All that backstabbing, the losses, and yesterday's heartache had hammered a fresh fire into my chest. I was pumped to prove to everybody that TechShield's spirit wasn't something you could just snuff out, and every bit of code I'd typed carried the hope of bringing back our pride and fixing the honor of all I'd worked for. Morning hit with this creepy calm stretching over the city like a heads-up something big was brewing. I was parked in front of a bunch of screens in my plain old living room, now my makeshift command center, watching the mess unfold with this blend of regret and dark glee. Every news ticker blasting across the screens was yelling about disaster, TechShield slammed by massive security breach, and stock tanks 60% in an hour, splashed up in huge letters for the world to gawk at. I could still feel that buzz from building it all, those long nights tweaking every line and patch, only to see it all come apart right in front of me. Now, the system I'd crafted with heart and sweat was turning on the new bosses. Emma and Ethan had cooked up this big, flashy takeover, betting the board's nod would let them run every inch of TechShield. They figured day one would be their victory lap, a toast to how clever they were. Instead, they woke up to a total mess. Investors who'd bought into our bold vibe were freaking out, watching the numbers nosedive. TechShield's crash wasn't just a money hit, it was an idea blowing up, a dream going down in flames. I could practically taste the panic of every worker and backer who'd believed in what we'd promised. I can still picture Ethan on CNBC, that cocky look swapped out for pure confusion and dread. His face, stripped of all that swagger, painted a picture of a guy who'd misjudged what real drive and heart can do. Liam's voice crackled through the phone, asking, "Man, what did you pull off?" Even then, I knew it wasn't about getting even, it was about bringing back a truth they'd buried. I shot back real quiet, "It's not what I did, it's what they couldn't see. TechShield's soul ain't in some fancy office or slick presentations, it's in the blood and brains of us who built it." This strange peace settled over me as I ran through those late-night memories, coding with coffee as my lifeline, brainstorming till dawn, and the big dreams that were now the bedrock of our fight back. That betrayal that almost broke me? It was flipping into the spark for something way bigger. Every key I'd ever tapped was a quiet middle finger to the greed and narrow thinking of folks who figured they could steer tomorrow by juking stats and headlines. I could almost see it, the dominoes tumbling, investors bailing, bored folks scrambling to patch the holes, as TechShield's big, shiny front fell apart like a flimsy card tower. You could feel the chaos in the air as I watched it all go down. I leaned back, letting the weight of it all sink in real slow. In that thick quiet, I swore to myself, this wasn't the finish line, but the kickoff to a hardcore takeback. I'd seen how quick power can get snatched up with lies, but I also knew real strength comes from trust, skill, and sticking to it no matter what. TechShield's fall was a wake-up call, a loud, "told you so," that the ones playing dirty would figure out soon enough. The core of innovation beats way beyond job titles and cash. Staring at those numbers plummeting on the screen, I thought about every late night the team put in, every battle we fought to keep our vision alive. That collapse wasn't just the top dogs screwing up, it was a loud reminder that honesty and elbow grease outlast empty big-shot dreams. My head was spinning with what could come next, a tomorrow where the real creators, the ones who get what making stuff is all about, would climb out of this mess. Right then, TechShield's tumble wasn't the end, it was a must-have cleanup of all the rot. I could feel the heaviness of every screw-up and every chance they'd ripped away, but man, there was this fresh energy pumping through me too. The whole world had its eyes on us, and I knew it wouldn't be long before the real story of what we'd done shone through, bright as day for everyone to catch. Every bit of me, every high and every low I'd lived through, was now pouring into this rock-solid mission to rebuild, take back what's ours, and show all the doubters that you can't kill the fire for creating something new. That crash. It wasn't the end, it was a kickstart, a tough but gotta-happen move toward a time where the ones who eat, sleep, and breathe the code hold the real reins, not the posers just playing the part. I was holed up in my messy little home office with Liam, Sophie, and Noah, each one a rock I could lean on, the heart of TechShield. The room was lit by just this one beat-up desk lamp, and the air had this thick vibe, hiding the fierce drive blazing inside us. We were huddled around my scratched-up wooden table, this unspoken pact tying us tight, we'd grab back what they stole. That betrayal still stung fresh in our heads. I couldn't shake how Emma's frosty stare and Ethan's cocky smirk signaled the second our baby started to fall apart. But right here, right now, we all got it, real power isn't in swanky offices or shiny press blurbs, it's in the late nights we spent hammering out code, fixing bugs, and polishing every line that turned TechShield into a cybersecurity star. I locked eyes with Liam first, his calm look steadying me as he asked, "We really doing this now?" It was a straight-up question, but it carried all the weight of what we'd been through together. I gave a slow nod and said, "Yeah, 5 minutes and the last plays on." This rush of adrenaline hit me, pulling up all those nights of plotting, the hushed talks in dark corners, and the piles of sacrifices that dragged us to this spot. This wasn't just my fight, it was ours, a quiet uprising against the ones who cared more about clout than the craft. Sophie's eyes lit up with this sneaky, determined glint as she said, "I've been itching for this." They had no clue we're the real spine of TechShield. Her tone was soft but solid, and I could hear the ghosts of every ditched promise and busted trust that kept our underground push alive. Noah, the guy who always kept it real, chipped in, "We scratched this place out of nothing, and tonight we're gonna prove no amount of greed or slick moves can wipe out what we built." In that tight little space, the faint buzz of far-off computers felt like the heartbeat of the company we'd lost, a steady nudge that every chunk of code we wrote proved how tight we were. I thought back to when TechShield was just a wild hope floating in a mess of doubt, when our ideas outshone any big-shot title. Now, with that betrayal weighing us down, we were geared up to hit back hard. I flipped open my laptop and went over the slick set of commands that'd soon shake up the fake rulers. My hands shook a bit as I double-checked every piece. This wasn't about payback, it was about taking back what's ours, showing the real builders of TechShield wouldn't bend for folks who cared more about looks than the guts of it. As I read each step out loud, our grit locked in tighter. Every techie detail and backup plan came from late-night brainstorms and way too many cold coffees. The room went dead quiet as I laid it out plain, how our setup would override the new cruise grip, handing control back to the coders and tech heads who actually got the system. I could see the fire in their eyes. It was like TechShield's old soul was back, ready to scrap for every bit and beat of the company. Liam's voice cut through the stillness, saying, "I remember when we thought nothing could touch us. Now's our shot to show it again." His words stuck with me as I hit that final click to lock it in. With the clock ticking down, we got ready for the big move. I could feel the buzz of excitement pumping through me, this steady vibe matching all the hours we'd put in to get here. Every tap in that plan, every hidden line, stood for our promise to keep it real and push forward. Our faces, glowing in the screen's light, told a tale of hope clawing out of the betrayal. I sucked in a deep breath and, with this cool-headed drive covering the storm inside, flipped the switch that had flipped the game. Right then, our quiet war wasn't just a thought, it was kicking, a vow to bring TechShield back where it belonged. We sat there together, tied by this faith that honesty, hard grind, and sticking by each other would always beat out the power-hungry cheats. The crew was ready, and with that last step rolling, we jumped into the dark, set to take back our story and prove TechShield's heart wouldn't shut up. I was sitting solo in my quiet little apartment, the only light coming from a flickering desk lamp and the steady shine of my computer screen. The air felt thick with everything that had gone down, and every noise, the heater's hum, the faint city rumble, matched the non-stop thump in my chest. I'd seen this day coming. Emma and Ethan's double-cross had kicked off a chain of dominoes that wouldn't stop falling. I'd spent night after night digging into code, nailing down every piece of the fightback, and now, staring at the screen packed with sneaky instructions, I felt this mix of ache from what was gone and a jolt of grit rising up in me. That awful morning was still sharp in my head, Emma's cold snap and Ethan's smug chuckle tearing my world apart. Their faces stuck with me, stoking a blaze that turned my hurt into a sharp, focused game plan. I could still see it all, those termination papers sliding over my desk like a done deal, the gloating looks they swapped, and the sinking feeling that everything I'd built was on the line. That's when I'd kicked my plan into gear, a secret code tucked deep in the system, a digital spark I'd planted with crazy care. Now, in the stillness of my hideout, I went over every line of that code again, knowing it'd hit TechShield like a freight train any second. My thoughts drifted back to the start of TechShield, those long nights, the game-changing wins, the big dreams we shared with a crew that gave it all. Those weren't just old times, they were the steel in my spine to push back. I could hear Liam's chill confidence when he'd said our work was more than a gig, it was something to pass down. That something was getting hit hard now, and the showdown was coming fast. The truth of it slammed me like a wave as I thought about the madness playing out on news streams and stock boards. Headlines were blaring about a huge breach and a stock drop that'd gut you, but in that wreck, I spotted a shot. TechShield's real base, the heart and smarts of the ones who made it, was still there, buried under all their lies and big egos. My hands shook just a bit as I worked my way through the digital maze of our system. Every tap on the keys was like a quiet shout about how tough our work could be. I'd figured out every trick Emma and Ethan might pull, every backup plan they could have cooked up, and now that my hidden code was live, there was no dodging the fallout from their double cross. That code wasn't just a tool, it was my way of laying out the truth, showing how empty their so-called power really was. Watching that timer count down the last few beats before it all kicked off, I felt this mashup of sadness, rage, and this heavy duty weighing on me. I wasn't just out for payback, I needed to bring back the honesty to what we'd built. Every second ticking by reminded me of the late nights we'd pushed through, the grind to get every detail right, and the hope we'd all shared for something better that was now hanging by a thread. The room felt like it was closing in as the hugeness of it all hit me hard, but I stood my ground, knowing this showdown was coming sure as the sun comes up. I sucked in a big breath and gave myself a quick second to think, making a silent deal with every soul who'd bought into TechShield's dream, every line of code we'd scratched out with grit and hope. As the digital chaos started brewing and the first cracks in the system popped up on my screen, I leaned into the mess. This wasn't me breaking down, it was the payoff of years of heart and hustle. In that loaded quiet, I could feel the vibe of everyone who'd ever backed our mission, this shared strength that cut through the craziness right in front of me. Their backstabbing had kicked off a domino effect, and as the system groaned under my secret code kicking in, I knew the fake bosses were about to crash hard. With one last steady breath out, I hit the key that locked in my call, sealing our path and kicking off the real start of our fight back. Right then, it clicked, this wasn't just about hitting back at the ones who'd screwed us, it was about grabbing TechShield's heart and soul again, proving real strength isn't in lies but in chasing what's good and true with everything you've got. I was sitting in the soft glow of my office, feeling every choice and every loss pile up as I got ready for the last big play in our under-the-radar war. The air was thick with this edgy buzz, and my computer's low hum sounded like some beast itching to break free. Every line I'd coded, every night I'd burned tweaking our shields, brought me to this spot, where all our sneaky planning would either bring back what we'd lost or blow it all to bits. I could still see Emma and Ethan's faces, their smug grins and fake swagger bouncing around in my head, and I didn't feel a lick of sorry, just this steady fire inside. They'd snatched everything with their shady moves, but they'd slept on how tight we were and the power of the folks who really believed in what we were doing. This wasn't just a counterpunch, it was a reckoning to show their win was hollow and bring back TechShield's honor. I'd set things rolling days back, slipping a sneaky command deep in our network, a digital bomb rigged to cut off the new cruise control and hand the wheel back to the ones who'd built this place from nothing. Every key I'd hit carried the weight of those long nights chasing down bugs, every smart little algorithm was proof of our team's heart and stick-to-it attitude. Now, parked alone in front of my screen, this storm of feelings roared through me, mad as hell at the betrayal, bummed about what was gone, and dead set on taking back what was ours. The plan was dead simple but bold as hell: one last, no-take-backs order to rip the fake leaders' hold on our systems, shine a light on the rot they'd brought in, and set off a chain of screw-ups only the real TechShield crew could fix. My fingers hovered over the keys, shaking a little as I geared up for the final swing. In that split second before I went for it, I thought about the promises I'd made to every tech head and coder who'd poured their guts into this. Their faith in what we were building together was the rock we'd stacked our whole deal on. With a deep, grounding breath, I let those memories fire me up. I punched in the last commands real careful, every letter like a shot straight at the core of the ones who'd jacked our spot. When I hit enter, the screen lit up with a flood of alerts, this wild mix of ones and zeros yelling that the end was starting for the ones who'd sold us out. I eased back in my chair, heart hammering, watching the digital pieces fall. The new cruise system started tanking, their grip sliding away like sand they couldn't hold. Right there, I felt this sharp, clean win, not from getting even, but from knowing deep down that real power's with the ones who create, guard, and grow ideas with heart and guts. Outside, the world was just waking up, clueless that a shakeup was already rolling in TechShield's core. I knew the blowback was gonna be huge, news channels would light up soon with the tale of the big betrayal and the even bigger comeback. But for me, it was never about the spotlight or some quick, gotcha, thrill. It was about fixing our legacy, showing every drop of sweat, every late-night grind, every push for the best wasn't for nothing. I let myself soak in that quiet win as the system's collapse spread out, a sign the last card was played. And sitting there, steady and unbroken, I got it, this wasn't the finish, but the start of something new, where the real makers, the true keepers of the spark, would step up again to call the shots. I was in this still, shadowy room, eyeballing screens spitting out a mess of numbers and alerts. The chaos I'd whipped up wasn't under wraps anymore, it was blasting out for everyone to see. Headlines were screaming collapse, Ethan Cade and Emma Monroe quit TechShield after security meltdown, burned across every news feed. I felt this mix of relief and a heavy heart watching the downfall of the ones who trashed everything we'd built. My brain zipped back to all those hours I'd spent coding, scheming, and prepping for this exact second. Every sneaky line, every hidden trick, was a block in the stronghold I was hell-bent on rebuilding. Now, with the news locking in the end of the fake bosses, I knew the last move was done, no going back. The new truth was harsh, investors were bailing, the board was backed into a corner, and TechShield's whole setup was cracking under all the lies. I'd always figured real power wasn't handed out, it was earned with sweat, straight talk, and sticking to the dream no matter what. Seeing Emma and Ethan flail to save face, I didn't feel any glee in their flop, just this deep, steady duty to bring back the real deal we'd all bled for. I thought back to when it first hit me, this betrayal wasn't just about me, it was a gut punch to what TechShield stood for. It was in those quiet gaps between coding, where every glitch we squashed and every win we nabbed was a promise to the crew that what we did mattered more than some shallow power grab. Now, staring at the empty seats in the meeting room and the faded traces of what used to be a buzzing hotspot, I saw we were at a fork in the road. TechShield's fall, cooked up by greed-blinded fools, wasn't the end, it was a flare, a pivot point. I started picking apart the slip-ups our enemies made, seeing the game plan behind every one of their bad calls. They figured snagging control of the company would let them wipe out everything we'd built it on. But they didn't count on the die-hard loyalty of the engineers and tech whizzes who'd thrown their whole selves into every gig. With a few quick, sharp moves, our undercover crew of coders was already clawing back the digital guts of the place. Those secret backdoors and slick traps I'd rigged up were flipping on, one after another, yanking the reins from the fake bosses and passing them back to the ones who really got TechShield. My phone wouldn't quit buzzing, texts from Liam, Sophie, Noah, and the rest of the gang who'd been holding their breath for this. Their pep talks hit me with this warm vibe of teamwork and grit. Every ping was a nudge that, yeah, this fight had been a slog and a half, but our drive to keep it real and innovate was tougher than any backstab. I shut my eyes for a sec, took a deep breath, and pulled together the juice I'd need for what was coming. Rebuilding was gonna be a monster of a job, one that'd push our guts and glue to the limit. But scrolling through the live feeds and the non-stop social media buzz, I could tell folks were starting to get it. Being a leader ain't about fancy labels or slick moves, it's about that non-stop hustle to create, fix stuff, and stick to what you believe in. I kicked off an open note to our crew of developers, investors, and ride-or-die clients. I needed them to see that TechShield wasn't just some business, it was our shared pipe dream, pieced together with late nights and big sacrifices. I kept it real simple. Sure, we'd been screwed over, but that screw-up just showed off the beating heart of what we were about. In that note, I swore we'd come back tougher and tighter than ever. I laid out how we'd shake up the decision-making, putting the power back with the folks who really knew what our work was worth. I thought back to every high and headache that got us here, each one proof of the fire we shared and the team spirit that had been TechShield's backbone from day one. As the last bits of our digital takeover snapped into place, I could almost picture what's next, a time when straight-up work, heart, and a real love for tech would beat out lies and big egos. The board had no wiggle room left, they had to admit change was here. After the mess hit, the shouts for new blood at the top were deafening. It was like every investor and worker finally woke up and saw it. TechShield's real muscle wasn't with the power chasers, but in the brain trust of the ones who'd made it happen. I felt this low-key pride, mixed with knowing there was a ton left to tackle. The checkmate was locked in, the phony rulers were out, and TechShield's whole setup was coming apart bit by bit. But even in this win, I knew the real deal would be how good we could rebuild from the rubble. I made up my mind, we'd fix every system, patch every busted trust, and come out as this shining example of grit and new ideas. That betrayal left some deep marks, but it also lit this unstoppable spark, fed by heart, hustle, and the rock-solid ties between us who'd scratched TechShield out of nothing. In that long, quiet stretch, as the echoes of our digital win bounced through the ruins of their empire, I felt this rush of hope. The liar's game was up, now it was our shot to climb back, rebuild, and show that real strength's in sticking together, knowing your stuff, and never letting go of the dream we all bought into. I was sitting there as the first shaky rays of dawn crept in, lighting up a room that had turned into my safe spot and my war zone all at once. After the storm hit and TechShield was left in pieces, with the ghosts of betrayal still creeping down every hall, I knew we had no choice but to start over from the wreckage. Every busted line of code, every promise they broke, and every sleepless night I'd spent gutted taught me that real toughness isn't about how high you fall, it's about how hard you fight to get back up. I could still see all those wins with the team, Liam, Sophie, Noah, and a bunch of unsung champs, working shoulder to shoulder, their drive breathing life into every project. Now, those flashes were my lifeline and my fuel to keep pushing. Hunkered down at my beat-up desk, covered in messy notes, sketches, and half-empty coffee mugs, I could almost hear our old laughs and the buzz of our big talks ringing out. Emma and Ethan's double-cross had been a brutal gut punch, slicing right into TechShield's core. But I got it, in all that mess, there were the roots of a fresh start. I started sketching out plans, not to get even, but to bring it back to life. Every key I hit was my word to rebuild a company that'd be stronger, tighter, and truer to the wild spark we'd kicked off way back when. I burned hours digging back into every chunk of our software, every security trick that had made TechShield a digital tank. The system was roughed up by dirty hacks and dumb calls, but it still had that stubborn creative kick inside. I swore I'd fire that kick back up, rounding up the loyal coders, the ones who always saw past the suits and straight to the soul of what we did. One by one, I hit up old buddies and trusted crew, spilling my dream of a reborn TechShield, one that'd ditch the shallow power games and go all in on the pure rush of tech brilliance. Every chat, laced with careful hope and still raw hurt, tied us closer together. We hashed out ideas about reworking the whole system, tweaking the rules to shield us from outside attacks and sneaky inside jobs too. The blueprints were tight, slow and steady steps to take back control, all rooted in keeping it real and pooling our smarts. I dove into those plans for days, matching up code with flashes of our early fights and wins. Every glitch warning and log entry spun a tale of what we'd pulled off together and what we could still do. Alone in my little workshop, I started rebuilding TechShield's security backbone from scratch. I reshaped the code with this careful, almost artsy touch, each piece screaming toughness, every cycle showing off our never-give-up vibe. I thought back to those nights running on fumes and old coffee, when we turned crazy headaches into big wins. That same fire was steering my fingers across the keys now. Out there, the city was waking up, like it was quietly rooting for us. The sharp morning breeze hinted at a fresh start, and peeking out the window, I saw how even after everything got wrecked, life kept going. That stubborn streak pushed me harder. I got it, every stumble was just a blip, and every hole could get patched with the right mix of brains and guts. Bit by bit, I shot off coded texts to my crew, asking them to jump in and help me rebuild. Their replies came back careful but hopeful, proof TechShield's spirit was still kicking. When we linked up in online huddles and late-night brainstorms, the vibe in our thrown-together war room was buzzing. Every thought laid down a stone for a new start, and every memory of old wins toughened us up. I swore to myself this time we'd spread the leadership around, make calls as a team, and never let one backstab shake the bond we'd built over years. In the soft light of the screens and the gentle hum of servers firing back up, I felt this spark of a new chapter kicking in. We'd craft a fresh TechShield, a spot where new ideas got their due, every line we wrote stood for our shared dream, and past screw-ups turned into lessons for what's next. My hands shook from being wiped out and pumped up as I sketched the first real map of our new setup. Every detail got locked down tight, every weak spot covered, every safety net doubled up on purpose. Right then, I wasn't just the guy who got burned by a nasty takeover anymore. I was the one shaping a comeback story, a leader with the big job of keeping TechShield's soul alive, till it shone brighter than ever. So, as the sun climbed up and washed the city in new light, I kicked off this tough road to rebuild, dead sure that together we'd rise from the mess and take back not just our company, but what it really meant to be innovators in a world that had almost lost sight of grit and heart. I was parked at my desk, the old familiar screen glow bouncing off my worn-out eyes as I soaked in the calm that had settled over my patched-up hideout. The last month ran through my head like a movie, the double cross, the undercover code battles, and the final knockout that booted Emma and Ethan out of the top spots. Now, staring out at the city shaking off sleep, I felt this steady sureness. Real power wasn't about big titles or slick boardroom wins, it was about the juice of ideas, sticking to your grind, and the trust you build with folks chasing the same dream. I remembered those nights when TechShield was more than a gig, it was a place where every code line packed a promise, every key tap proving what we were all about. In those rough patches when the betrayal hit hard, I figured out power's real deal is in how tough your spirit is and that non-stop push to make something no lie can snatch away. Standing in the rebuilt HQ now, I could spot that spirit all over, in the grins of engineers who'd lost hope once, in Liam's quiet focus as he dialed in our systems, and in Sophie's soft nudges that we were bigger than any one hit. Everything we'd been through peeled off the fake stuff, leaving just the raw heart of what we do. I thought back to when the news of our crash first dropped, how the panic in our old boss's eyes flipped to this chill certainty you get when you know you've built something solid. Power, I'd learned, isn't in the paycheck size or some corner office vibe, it's in the guts of every person who'd bet it all to kick TechShield off from zero. I replayed those long nights crowded around screens, keeping it real with straight talk, our sights clear of status chasing. Those were the days when every bug we smashed and every system we locked down was a little win against a world that didn't always get what leading's about. Real power wasn't in owning markets or spitting fancy speeches, it was in that quiet knowing we could tackle anything with the strength of what we knew together and sticking to what's right. Flipping through the updated company stats, I saw our systems were tougher than ever. The betrayal taught us to watch our backs, to bank on our own skills and the crew that had our backs. Every inch of the office, from the coding desks to the meeting spots, buzzed with TechShield's reborn vibe, pulled up from the wreckage of greed and tricks. I could tell the trust we pieced back together ran deeper than any clout the shady few ever had. I thought about Emma and Ethan, their big plans busted, not by me getting even, but by the plain fact you can't swipe a creator's soul. Their flop was a rough wake-up call, power grabbed by screwing people over doesn't last, but the kind you earn with sweat and straight-up honesty sticks around. I remembered all those team talks, laying out our dream in simple words, no need for over-the-top fluff. We figured every glitch we fixed, every upgrade we nailed, was a step to a future built on rock-solid truth and teamwork. Now, easing back into the old work groove, I felt like I'd come full circle. I'd learned power's true gig isn't in bossing assets or spinning stories, it's in the steady, quiet chase for the best. It's in the daily grind of banging out tight code that guards our digital turf and the values we hold tight. That betrayal stung bad, but it sharpened my drive and deepened what I know about leading. Looking at my team, each one a keeper of our big dream, I felt this deep thanks. We'd made it through storms folks thought would crush us, and coming out the other side, we found real powers in sticking tight and believing hard that new ideas come straight from the gut. In that still moment, with morning sun streaming in and the servers humming low, I knew we were just getting started. Power's not something you grab or get handed, it's something you build, grow, and guard every damn day, one line of code at a time. Another story wraps up on Top Stories Hub. Make sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and drop your reactions in the comments.